Imagine standing on the threshold of a vast, unforgiving wilderness. Before you lies a journey of hundreds of miles, fraught with bandits, wild beasts, and treacherous terrain. A young man is about to step onto this dusty path, tasked with saving his destitute family. Beside him stands a stranger, a guide who seems ordinary in every way, a fellow traveler offering a helping hand. Yet this guide is not from the earth at all. We find this extraordinary tale of disguise, despair, and deliverance tucked away in the ancient pages of the Apocrypha. To understand the gravity of this journey, we must travel back to the 8th century BC, to the sprawling and terrifying capital of the Assyrian Empire, Nineveh. As we read in the Book of Tobit, chapter 1, the northern kingdom of Israel had fallen. Its people, including a devout man named Tobit from the tribe of Naphtali, had been dragged into exile. Living as a captive in a foreign land was perilous, and the Assyrians were brutal masters. Yet Tobit remained fiercely faithful to the God of Israel. According to the Book of Tobit, chapter 1, verses 16 and 17, Tobit risked his life to secretly bury the bodies of his fellow Israelites who had been executed by the Assyrian king. But this righteous act led to his ruin. His property was confiscated, and he was forced into hiding. Eventually, a change in leadership allowed Tobit to return home, but tragedy soon struck again. As recorded in the Book of Tobit, chapter 2, verse 10, Tobit fell asleep in his courtyard, and bird droppings fell into his eyes, leaving him completely blind. He was plunged into a world of literal and spiritual darkness. Destitute, mocked by his neighbors, and relying on his wife's menial labor, Tobit felt utter despair. In chapter 3 of the Book of Tobit, we hear his heartbreaking prayer, begging God to let him die. But hundreds of miles away, in the city of Ecbatana in Media, another desperate prayer was ascending to heaven. A young woman named Sarah was suffering an unimaginable torment. According to the Book of Tobit, chapter 3, verses 7 to 9, Sarah had been given in marriage 7 times, but a jealous demon named Asmodeus had killed each of her husbands on their wedding night before the marriages could be consummated. Tormented by grief and mocked by her own servants, Sarah too prayed for death. As the Book of Tobit, chapter 3, verses 16 and 17 beautifully states, at that very moment, the prayers of both Tobit and Sarah were heard in the glorious presence of God, and the angel Raphael was sent to heal them both. Not knowing that heaven had already set a rescue plan in motion, the blind Tobit remembered a large sum of silver he had left in trust with a man in Media years ago. He called his son Tobias and instructed him to travel there and retrieve it. But Tobias needed a reliable guide for the perilous journey. When Tobias went out to find one, he immediately encountered a man standing there. As the Good News Bible translates in the Book of Tobit, chapter 5, verse 4, Tobias did not realize that the man was an angel of God. The stranger introduced himself as Azarias, claiming to be a fellow Israelite who knew the roads to Media perfectly. And so the boy and the disguised angel set off. Their first trial came as they camped by the Tigris River. According to the Book of Tobit, chapter 6, verses 2 and 3, a huge fish leapt out of the water and tried to swallow Tobias's foot. At the angel's command, Tobias wrestled the fish onto the bank. Raphael then instructed him to cut the fish open and keep its gallbladder, heart, and liver, explaining that they would be useful for medicine. As they approached Ecbatana, Raphael revealed the next step of the divine plan. He told Tobias that they would stay at the house of Raguel, Sarah's father. Furthermore, Raphael instructed Tobias that he had the right to marry Sarah. Knowing her terrifying history, Tobias was naturally terrified, but according to the Book of Tobit, chapter 6, verses 16 and 17, Raphael told him not to fear the demon. He instructed Tobias to take the fish's heart and liver and place them on the burning incense when he entered the bridal chamber. Tobias trusted his guide. He married Sarah, and on their wedding night, he followed the angel's instructions perfectly. As we read in the Book of Tobit, chapter 8, verses 2 and 3, the odor of the burning fish repelled the demon Asmodeus, who fled all the way to Egypt, where the angel Raphael bound him. The ancient curse was broken, Sarah was finally free, and Tobias's life was spared. While the joyful wedding celebrations continued, Raphael traveled on to retrieve Tobit's silver, completing the practical mission that had started the journey. But the most profound turning point of the story awaited them back in Nineveh. Tobias returned home with his new bride, the recovered wealth, and the angel still disguised as his faithful companion. Tobit, still blind, stumbled out to meet his son. Following Raphael's final instructions, as detailed in the Book of Tobit, chapter 11, verses 12 and 13, Tobias rubbed the fish's gore on his father's eyes. The white film scaled away, and for the first time in years, Tobit could see his son's face. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Tobit and Tobias offered to give their remarkable guide half of all the wealth they had brought back. It is here that the veil is finally lifted. According to the Book of Tobit, chapter 12, verse 15, the stranger refuses the money and says, "I am Raphael, one of the 7 angels who stand in the glorious presence of the Lord, ready to serve him." Trembling with fear, the father and son fell to the ground, but the angel comforted them, saying, "Don't be afraid. Peace be with you. Praise God forever." As we read in verse 21 of that same chapter, the angel ascended, and when they stood up, they could no longer see him. When we step back and reflect upon this beautiful narrative, what does it teach us today? It speaks powerfully to the quiet, often invisible ways the divine operates in our lives. Tobit and Sarah were separated by vast distances, both engulfed in sorrow, both feeling utterly abandoned by the world. Yet heaven was listening. God's response was not a booming voice from the clouds, but a quiet companion on a dusty road. The core lesson we draw from the Book of Tobit is that divine guidance often comes in the most unexpected, unassuming forms. The angel Raphael did not appear with wings of blinding light to lead Tobias. He appeared as a fellow traveler, offering practical advice, steady companionship, and a calming presence. It invites us to ask ourselves, how often do we overlook divine help in our own lives because it arrives in the guise of a helpful stranger, a timely word from a friend, or a sudden moment of clarity? Furthermore, this story teaches us about the deeply woven interconnectedness of our trials and our deliverance. God used one journey to answer 2 vastly different prayers, bringing physical sight to a blind father and spiritual peace to a tormented young woman. It reminds us that even when we are walking through our own wilderness, unable to see the path ahead, we are never truly walking alone.